The auditorium was filled with restless whispers, the kind that swell before a school performance. Parents adjusted cameras, siblings squirmed in their seats, and teachers bustled about with last-minute encouragement. But on the side of the stage, a little girl with golden braids stood frozen in place, her tiny hands clutched tightly around a piece of folded paper. Her name was Lily Carter, daughter of a well-known millionaire whose reputation for success preceded him into every room. Everyone expected brilliance from her, the confidence, the charm, the polished words. Instead, Lily hadn't spoken a single sentence in front of her classmates for months. Stage fright? Maybe. Shyness? Possibly. But the truth ran deeper. She felt invisible behind the towering shadow of her father's fame. When the teacher called her name, the room grew quiet. Lily's wide blue eyes searched the crowd, but the only thing she found was her father's phone raised, ready to capture a performance he assumed would be flawless. Her throat tightened. Not a word came out. She just stood there, trembling. A couple of kids giggled in the front row. Her father sighed, lowering his phone in disappointment. For Lily, the silence wasn't just on stage, it was in her heart, a silence she couldn't seem to break. And though dozens of adults in the room wished they could help, only one person, one unlikely, struggling teacher, would step forward in a way no one expected. And that act of kindness, though small, would change everything. Miss Harper wasn't the type of teacher anyone expected to make headlines. She was young, new to the school, and quietly juggling more than most realized. Rent notices piled up at her apartment, and the rattling old car she drove seemed one bump away from quitting. Still, she carried herself with a warmth that her students clung to. She noticed details others overlooked, like how Lily always doodled in the corners of her notebook instead of raising her hand, or how she stayed behind after class pretending to tie her shoes until the hallway was nearly empty. That day on stage, when Lily froze, Miss Harper's heart clenched. She knew the girl wasn't defiant or spoiled, as some whispered, but simply lost in a silence that seemed too heavy to break alone. Without hesitation, she walked toward the stage. Parents exchanged confused looks, teachers shifted uncomfortably, unsure if it was appropriate. But Miss Harper didn't stop. Kneeling beside Lily, she whispered softly, "You don't have to do this alone. Would you like me to read with you?" Lily's trembling eyes flicked up, searching for judgment, but finding only patience. Slowly, she gave a barely there nod. Miss Harper held out her hand. "Let's be brave together." It was such a simple offer, an act most might overlook, but for Lily, it cracked open the possibility that her voice didn't have to stand alone. And for Miss Harper, whose own life felt filled with closed doors, the chance to help one small voice find courage was a gift she hadn't known she needed. The audience murmured as Miss Harper guided Lily to the microphone, her hand still gently holding the child's. "It's okay," she whispered again, loud enough only for Lily to hear. The paper crumpled slightly in Lily's fist, her lines waiting, an innocent poem about sunshine and flowers. But the words felt like mountains trapped inside her throat. Miss Harper began softly, reading the first line aloud, her voice calm and steady. "The sun comes up to start the day," then she paused, smiling at Lily with quiet encouragement. At first, there was only silence. Lily's lips trembled, her eyes darting nervously to the sea of parents. She spotted her father, his brow furrowed, his phone now hanging at his side. Something in his face made her shrink further. But Miss Harper didn't push. She simply repeated the line and added, "Would you like to try the next part with me?" Slowly, Lily's small voice slipped out, barely more than a whisper, "And chases all the clouds away." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Miss Harper didn't react dramatically, she just smiled as though this fragile sound was the most natural thing in the world. They continued together, line by line. With each verse, Lily's voice grew a little stronger, her posture a little taller. By the final stanza, Miss Harper let her hand fall away, leaving Lily standing at the microphone on her own. And to everyone's astonishment, Lily finished the poem without a single stumble. For the first time, her silence was broken, not shattered by pressure or expectation, but unlocked by kindness. When Lily spoke the last words, the auditorium erupted into applause. Some parents even stood, moved not by a flawless performance, but by the courage it had taken for such a small child to find her voice. Tears shimmered in Miss Harper's eyes as she stepped back, letting Lily take in the moment fully as her own. Yet what touched Lily most wasn't the applause, it was the way Miss Harper stayed just behind her, steady and safe, like a quiet anchor. For the first time, she didn't feel judged or compared. She simply felt heard. In the front row, Mr. Carter, the millionaire father who commanded boardrooms and silenced crowds with a single word, sat frozen. He had expected disappointment, maybe even embarrassment. Instead, he was overwhelmed by a feeling he couldn't quite name: pride, yes, but also humility. His daughter hadn't needed expensive tutors, prestigious programs, or his well-connected friends. She had needed kindness, patience, and someone who saw her as more than the CEO's daughter. After the performance, Lily ran off the stage, not to her father's side as expected, but straight into Miss Harper's arms. Cameras flashed, whispers spread, and though some questioned why a teacher had intervened, none could deny the power of what had just unfolded. For Lily, the silence that had once imprisoned her felt like it had cracked open to let the light in. And for her father, a seed of realization began to grow, that money could buy many things, but never the type of courage that blossoms through compassion. After the event, while families collected flowers and congratulated their children, Mr. Carter approached Miss Harper. For a man known for his commanding presence, he looked surprisingly unsure, almost vulnerable. "I don't know what to say," he admitted quietly, glancing at Lily who now laughed softly with a small group of classmates, something she hadn't done in months. "She hasn't spoken like that in so long. I thought it was something money could fix, but," his voice trailed off. Miss Harper shook her head gently. "Sometimes, it's not about fixing. It's about listening. She just needed to feel safe enough to try." Her words were simple, but they hit him harder than any corporate lesson ever had. For years, he had showered Lily with gifts, private lessons, and trips, thinking love could be measured in what he provided. But today, a teacher who lived paycheck to paycheck had given his daughter something priceless: her voice. "Thank you," he finally managed, and it wasn't the rehearsed gratitude of a businessman but the heartfelt words of a father. For the first time, he saw Miss Harper not as just a schoolteacher but as someone who had given him back a part of his child he thought he had lost. Standing there, watching his daughter glow with newfound confidence, he realized that the true measure of wealth wasn't in his bank accounts or boardroom victories, it was in the moments when someone chose kindness over judgment, patience over pressure, and compassion over pride. Weeks later, Lily's transformation continued to surprise everyone. She began raising her hand in class, volunteering to read during story time, and even helping another shy student practice for a spelling bee. Each small step was celebrated not with fanfare, but with the quiet confidence Miss Harper had taught her to carry. Mr. Carter, too, changed in ways his colleagues hardly recognized. Board meetings ended earlier so he could be home for bedtime stories. His phone stayed in his pocket during school events, replaced by genuine attention instead of recording through a screen. One evening, as he tucked Lily in, she whispered, "Daddy, I was brave because Miss Harper believed in me." Those words lingered in his heart long after she drifted off to sleep.